All right. Good evening and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club meeting for Thursday, February 26th. My name is John Milliker and I'm the club president for the 2025-2026 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the arts, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit www.arundelcameraclub.org. And whether you're watching us live or catching a recorded session, we'd love to invite you to join us here in person. We meet every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. at Severna Park Baptist Church in Severna Park, Maryland. Do we have any announcements from our officers? Yes, sir. Come on up, Ed.
Well, I'm sorry about the snow on Sunday, which a lot of people couldn't come to the last meeting we had to the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., but I'm planning to go. I'm planning to go this month. Now, next month, we have, on March the 15th, we have the Jerusalem Mill Village Covered Bridge in Jericho. So that's really going to be nice. Okay, so thank you for your kind attention, and I'll be looking forward to seeing everybody.
Thank you so much, Ed. Yes, Ed, we have a few new faces here. Ed is part of our field trip team, and he does a great job. He and Nancy, there she is. They both do a great job in making sure there's really cool places for us to go. And then, of course, Mike Thomas, our webmaster, who just does such a great job on the newsletters and the websites as well. Do we have any other announcements from officers? MPA? Yes. Oh, yes.
I need to come up. I did book the reservation for the banquet at Olive Grove, so we're...
Okay, what is the date on that for us to save the date? May 28th is our end of year banquet.
Yes.
That is where we get to display all the winners for the year, because not only do we do the print and digital contests, but we also have final winnings and plaques and awards and big ribbons for the end of the year. And that's when we have our photographer of the year as well. So May 28th, do you say? May 28th, that'll be at Olive Grove Restaurant. And what are we looking at about price-wise? Have we figured that out yet?
Ticket price comes in at just under $40. We always add a couple dollars to it for incidentals like raffle tickets or if we bring our own cake or...
Okay, so we'll figure that out. It's a great time. It's a great night. And the food there has been so good that we just keep going back for some reason. So it's great. Last chance for officers' announcements or MPA? Okay, we'll let Ron do that when he gets up. Do we have any members that have any personal announcements to share, such as having work published, accepted into a show, winning an award, or other photography milestones? Okay, all right. Is anybody joining us for the first time tonight that would like to stand up and introduce themselves? Like to come on up?
Hi, I got a big mouth. I can just say.
Okay.
The people in line can't hear you.
It's okay.
Oh, gotcha. I'm sorry. That's okay.
Hi, my name is Patty Moore. I've been following the group for probably a year and a half now, and just got up enough nerve to come down and meet with everybody. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Excellent. Welcome, Patty. How'd you find us? Online? Perfect. Anybody else? Yes.
Do you want me to do the mic?
If you can, that'd be great. Or we can get Christine to bring the mic to you.
Here.
Hi, my name is Margie. I'm Colin McNock's next door neighbor and a member of the DPCA. And he's been coming here and saying wonderful things about it. So I figured I'd check it out.
Great.
Good to see you.
Well, thank you, Colin, and welcome to both of you. Hope you really enjoy this wonderful club. Let's see. I think that's about it. We'll take it over to Christine, and she'll talk about our upcoming schedule. You ready, Christine? And then hand it over to Ron. Introduce Ron.
Okay, let's see. Our upcoming schedule. Next weekend, we have a program by Irene Salislato on wildlife photography. On March 12th is our next digital contest with a theme of open. On March 15th is our field trip to Jerusalem Mill Village and Covered Bridge. On March 19th is our program by Bob Weber on abstract photography. March 26th is next print contest with the theme of open. And April 2nd is a program by Oliver Assis on travel photography. April 9th is the following digital contest with the theme of abstract. Now let me hand this over to Ron, who will introduce our judge for the evening and give any MPA updates.
If my microphone doesn't work, tell me and I'll come and get yours. Okay, a couple MPA things. First of all, I want to thank Greg for finding my error in the email where I sent you all of the code to get into the Odyssey of Light discount, $20. And I had inverted a couple of, I must have been dyslexic that afternoon when I did the email, so I got two of the letters mixed up. So I sent another email out a couple days ago with the new code in. I'll send it out again if you want. I'm not going to read it out loud because there might be people secretly listening in and trying to get that code. So that's coming up. But Greg, thanks for that. That was a huge help, you know. And I do appreciate people speaking up, pointing out my flaws I've had. There's a lot of folks that will get in line to do that, but I appreciate that.
If I remember right, I thanked you wholeheartedly for all you do for the club.
Well, you did. Thank you much. Thank you. Now, here's the thing on, I wanted to remind you also, Odyssey of Light is going to be on the 11th of April. And last year it was on Easter, it was not a good weekend. This is not Easter weekend, it's April 11th. And we've got the two speakers in the afternoon, National Geographic speakers and photographers. And then we have a couple opportunities in the morning for some students to come in and get some one-on-one instruction. So we got some classrooms upstairs. It is a buoy, which is not a hard drive over there. Just go across 50 and you're there. And I think you'll find it to be a really good start. We're going to try to have 8 of the MPA judges available to set up some 15-minute or so free critiquing sessions if you bring in 3 or 4 photographs just to get somebody else's point of view. And I did that today with a friend I met with for lunch, and I always do this with this particular friend. They're not a photography expert. Lay these pictures down and get some feedback, because somebody's eyeballs other than yours gives you a lot of information that you can't else get into your head as you're trying to do that. So it's a great opportunity. It doesn't cost you anything. And I think it said if you wanted to do a donation with it, that would be good. The other thing that's interesting is tomorrow morning, I'm going to go over with Steve Sattler and Mike Washington to scope out Strathmore Mansion, because we were invited by them to go over and display. So we've got, in fact, quite a few. They're looking for quite a few pictures. And we're thinking the black and white contest, which opens March 1st, I might add, plug in for that. And by the way, the code that we have for Odyssey of Light also works for getting your free pictures into that contest. So anyway, we're going to go scope that out and see if there'd be one other venue to get the pictures up. They will charge a little bit of a fee if they sell your pictures while they're there. It's a wedding venue and other kinds of events venues. A really beautiful place, I understand. So we're looking forward to check that out. And again, March 1st, beginning of the black and white contest.
What was the date of the workshop you talked about?
That should be April 11th. Is that a Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
April 11th. That was when we were planning to go to the zoo. But we
Okay.
didn't get that around.
Well, I don't have any animals there, but you're welcome to.
Maybe we should
We can
reschedule.
move it.
Yeah.
If Ed agrees and everybody agrees, we
Yeah,
can just push
yeah,
it to
good.
another day.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that up. That's real helpful.
Susan was nice.
Okay. On the other side of this, you've been reading my numbers. Bob went through and counted Fred counted our numbers for each of the categories. So looks like we have enough to have contests for all 4 the categories tonight. And last week, you remember, we reversed and did all the novices, and then we did all the unlimited. So we're back to our normal, which is black and whites. So we'll do the novice black and white and then the unlimited black and whites. So do you have any questions before we get started? Well, I have one thing I forgot to mention. We do have a judge this evening, and it's not Mike Thomas. Mike, thank you for stepping in last week. And we know now we've got an option. He's with us, so that's good. Janet Jeffers is our judge this evening. She's been here. I don't know how many times I can count on my fingers. A ton. Online during COVID and down here many times. And she's always great, and it's always an evening that goes long because she takes her time and gives us some good feedback. Now, if you happen to go faster tonight, we won't hold it against you, okay? But she did a great program for you a couple of weeks ago. And so I think that some of you might be kind of cued into her thinking, might be able to anticipate some of her choices this evening. So, oh, yeah, we do need to plug that in.
Might be helpful.
All right. Okay, well, let there be light. If there aren't any questions, why don't we, can I give you a minute to talk? You might want to tell them what you're going to be looking for or anything in terms of photography that you want them to know about. Do you have any displays out? Any gallery shows going right now?
I don't really have anything on display in a gallery space at the moment. I've got a couple of opportunities coming up that I don't want to give any details on because they're sort of up in the air, and the dates are to be determined. They might push into 2027. So
okay.
But you know how that is. It's just there's always opportunities floating around, and I do have a body of work that I'd really like to show as a nice cohesive piece of work in a nice exhibit, and it just happens to be based on water. So, but no, I've just kind of been up to my usual thing. I got back from a week or so in Joshua Tree National Park a couple weeks ago. I decided to get out of the winter for a little bit, and my timing was really good because I left shortly after we had the snow and ice storm. And I've been actually printing, or not printing, I've been processing. I haven't tried printing them yet. Processing the images in black and white, which is a little bit of a departure for me. But I like the results that I'm seeing so far. As for judging, I think some of you do already know me or you're familiar with me. Of course, I'm looking for all the usual things that judges are looking for. We're looking for clarity. We're looking for sharpness, good exposure. All of these a composition that's clean and makes sense. And I'm also always looking for that extra bit of creativity, beyond technical excellence, something that's got a story or a mystery or some sort of spark that draws you in and then keeps you there for a while. Because there are so many images now out there in the world. We're looking at them every day. They're on our phones. They're everywhere. And we can just get fatigue by all the photographs that we see. There's just so much that it's harder and harder now to not only get somebody's attention with a photograph, but keep it for a little while and really pull a viewer in. So when something does that, I will give it special attention. Sometimes that'll edge out technical perfection, but, I'll always give my reasons why. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me get a chair for you. Where are we gonna put it right now?
Yeah. Probably dead on here might be better, and maybe even up a little further if you'd like. You position it where you feel you'd like it to be.
Yeah, I've got my glasses on so I can see at a distance, but sometimes I do like to kind of.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Okay. So
don't want to disrupt the camera. So. I'll get on the side of my stronger eye.
How many pictures?
This is the novice mono. We have 12 images. We're going to look for first through fourth and honorable mention. Okay, we'll do once through, and then we'll go back and look at it again.
You get time real quick.
This one is, I think it's letting up.
Go ahead,
Okay.
call it.
This one is Hurricane Aaron. This one is Water Sentinel. Into the Light. Yellowstone with steam, fog, ice, snow, and water. Clouds on the Bay. Undertow. Elizabeth Landing Sunset. Okay, Ice Imagination 2. Frozen Droplet. Pacific Froth. Carved by the Sea. Okay. Okay, so you flip it this way, right? Okay. Right, first image.
Okay, and this is the novice group?
Yes.
These are
That
very good.
novice only designates that they've been with
Yes.
us for a short time. We don't know
Yes.
what they've been doing before they
Right,
got
right.
here.
No, yeah, I'm seeing some really, really
Yeah.
beautiful images here. I like this a lot. The way that you've got the water acting as a screen between the viewer and the subject is it's handled really nicely. Yeah, it's interesting how the girl is a bit clearer and then the guy is a little bit more obscured. It's just kind of an interesting effect that probably just happened. It wasn't something you planned for, but it does make for an interesting potential story there. The clarity is really beautiful. The tones are nice and sharp. The water is just enough of a blur. Yeah, really beautifully done.
In or out?
And
Okay.
I really like the contrast in this photo between that dark tower and the light water. That's a really sort of beautiful point of that makes the drama of that big splash. It really helps that. I think you could even, if the sky were processed a little bit darker, you might get even a little bit more drama out of it. There's a lot of sky in the image, and it's, relatively featureless. It's, it's a pretty solid color. I think you could maybe even crop this a little bit for just a little bit less sky. There's a little shape over to the right on the horizon that's kind of indistinct, and it sort of distracts my eye a little bit, that little dark shape that's on the far right. You could probably, kind of crop that out and have the tower a little bit more off center. I think just, a little bit of cropping would make this even stronger, but it's a nice image. I'll say in. Yeah, I noticed, by the way, it was nice to hear titles which doesn't usually happen until after the competition a lot of
okay,
times.
good.
It was nice to hear it because it's like, oh, I can see a sentinel, it looks like a figure, and that larger fountain with the others around it, which it's kind of a nice to have a little tiny bit of context, a little bit of the photographer's intention. Yeah, the form of that fountain is really cool. And the airplane is just like this little punctuation moment too. I love the contrast and the light in this. You've handled it nicely because it looks like it could have been very possible to have some of that sky really blown out. And I just see a little bit of that hot spot where the sun is, but it's handled well in a print. I know that's challenging to do. Yeah, I think this is nicely done. I think maybe if the plane were a little bit more separated from the figure, I know timing is what it is. It probably might have been hard to capture, in time, but maybe the plane being a little bit further over to the left, a little bit more separated and distinct from that watery figure could have been even more effective, but this is really nice. And I'm gonna have some choices to make. Again, I love the sharpness in this and that foreground detail. There's a lot in there, and you've handled that nicely. And again, shooting into the sun is always a challenge. You're always making a decision, where that exposure is going to land, whether you keep some detail in the highlights or not. And here the sun is blown out, which is, not necessarily my personal preference, especially when it's up in the corner like that, because anything bright in the corner of a photograph tends to pull your eye to that light spot. And in this case, since it's in the corner, it kind of pulls your eye right out of the image. So I would just think about that compositionally next time, because it's a beautiful scene. And I think maybe a different composition might have given it a little bit more impact. So that's out. This is really beautiful and so classic. I like the processing that you've used here. It just really, it evokes, it could have been taken 100 years ago or yesterday. And I really do like that. The way you've framed this, the trees just, really kind of curve around the brightest part of the scene in the center, where the geothermal features are and the water. There's a really nice line of movement of the eye into the frame from the middle of the bottom right through to the back where the steam is coming up, and then the clouds in the sky. I think you've handled the processing and the composition really nicely. And, it's a place that's been photographed a lot. And it's always challenging to do something different with it. And I think for a very classic scene, you've really done it beautifully. So that's in. Nice choice to really make this composition dramatic by, that tiny little strip of water at the bottom, that lighthouse, and then the clouds are, the big, they take up, 90% of the composition. And, that's, I think, because those clouds really are, attractive, and they've got some nice contrast in them. I think it's a nice choice. And clouds being water, I feel like it can work, for the theme. It may not be the most obvious water image, but I think it does work. It's quite lovely. Maybe not as obvious, speaking of water, as maybe some of the others, but it's a really beautifully done picture. I'll say that's in. This is really very pretty. It's very dramatic. that the way you've captured the moving water and a long exposure is really nice. Crashing against that rock and moving around it, it just creates this, this circle that punctuates the composition. I do see that it's a little bit overexposed, and there's some bright spots in that water where it's white, and I kind of wish there were a little bit more detail in those highlights. Because the otherwise it's so striking that I think just a little bit more detail in the white highlights there would have been welcomed. It is just a little bit bright for me. But it is a beautiful picture, and I like what you've done with it. I'm going to say out. This is a nice scene. I like that there's a moodiness to it. That's a little bit on the darker side, and then just the light bits in the sky and the reflection are sort of the point of focus. I think that maybe a little bit of cropping to take out some of the most featureless sky at the very top would sort of emphasize that sort of horizontal landscape aspect of it. I might try something like that to make the composition a little bit more impactful. It's a nice picture, but I'm not. I'm kind of looking for a little bit more, and maybe if you'd gotten a little bit more reflection of the sky and the water, there's a lot of water in there that's sort of just kind of that rough texture, and that sort of takes me, it's kind of in the middle of the area of water. It sort of takes me out of the overall impact of that reflection of the sky. So I would just think about those compositions and what it is that you're reflecting and how much of the reflection is there in the image, just to have a little bit more impact. So that's out. This is very cool. And I suspect maybe somebody was here for my presentation, maybe, perhaps, but there's been some great ice. So I will not, I won't presume to have inspired any of the subjects, but this is really well seen. I love these details in the ice. They're just so delicate, and the pattern is really compelling. I even like that. It looks like there's water underneath the ice that's reflecting tree branches, and that adds a little layer of mystery to it. I think you could maybe darken that a little bit more, and it would still be, apparent what it is. It would just have a little bit more contrast with the ice, but otherwise, I like the composition. I like the form. And your sharpness and the contrast are really beautiful. That's in. The frozen droplet. The bubbles in it are really cool. I think you've done a nice job of, capturing this, isolating it from the background. There's, it's very clean. It looks nice and crisp. The detail is good. It looks like, the contrast, you've got just enough highlights and shadows that keep all the tones together. It's very simple, but I think it's got a nice graphic impact. So I'll say that's in. The texture in this is really beautiful. And the tonal range is very nice too. It feels like the highlights are light, but they're not blown out. There's some nice dark shades in there too. There's definitely like a sense of movement. This is really more like abstract. it almost could be stone or something else. I might not immediately think it was water if I didn't know what the theme was tonight. And that's an interesting, it's an interesting treatment. So I do appreciate that. In fact, I think I see some vegetation in it along that left-hand side sort of angle, which does make me wonder, like, what is the scale of this? I'm really not entirely certain. So, there's a little mystery here that keeps me looking at it a little bit more. Yeah, I do see vegetation. And it piques my curiosity. So even though it's not a very straightforward photograph, there's something here that makes me want to look at it closer and figure out more about it. I kind of get drawn deeper into it, which surprised me because at first glance, I thought, oh, I see, I get it, but maybe I don't, so there's a little bit more to it than first meets the eye. And I do appreciate that I'm getting more drawn in the more I look at it. So yeah, well done. That's in. Oh, another really beautiful, very classic image. And I love the softness of the water. I think this is another longish exposure. Those rock formations, it's really beautiful. The tones are just dead on, really nice. Beautiful detail, contrast. The composition is very pleasing. Yeah, it's lovely. It's in.
Okay, we can spread them out.
Sure.
Okay.
I think I nudged.
There's two. Okay.
It's really nice. Okay, I'll take out this one.
So what's 1, 2, 3, 4? We need 5, right, total?
5. Okay. I'll take out that one.
I guess 2 more.
Well, I like to say that if you look at the world the way a serious photographer looks at the world, you see so much more than the average person. The average person may see the worst of it. That's all 5 or 10 seconds. The serious photographers keep studying, looking for opportunities and composition. I think it adds too much to the plan of my fall. I come a lot of traveling. I think photography is a very good combination.
It's really beautiful.
35 foreign countries.
I feel like it's not as much about the water.
Photography made it so much more interesting. I'd like to do that. No, I did it here.
Can't imagine.
I'm upstairs. Oh, she played the full guitar before.
There you go.
Okay. Take that one out.
This is tough.
They're all really good in very different ways, you know. Okay. Okay. One.
On my desk. For quite a long time. And I have been sitting on something. I have got to sit.
Am I doing it right?
Two.
I'll be up and young tomorrow to do that. And I figured maybe somebody will get a chance to tell you first. And I'll be tired.
Three.
So we saw.
I'm sorry.
Three.
Three.
She is so busy with other things that keep her. She has this ghost in her eyes. She's a good photographer. Somebody had one photograph. In the competition, she was away for a prize. I thought she was there. And I heard that, oh, that was it. So while she was there,
Four.
I should have done the same.
The 6 and the 7. I might give it a
Just one more. Okay, that's great. Okay, we do have some winners. Honorable mention to Colin McNaught for Ice Imagination 2.
So I took that, I walk every morning in the Waterworks Trail in Annapolis, and there's a bridge there that was free. The little creek was freezing every day and melting every day. And so every day there was a different pattern came up. And I had my iPhone with me, and that's what I took it with. So thanks.
By the way, not making any suggestions of anything, but if honorable mention or lower, we do have abstract at the end of the month, and month after next. I'm sorry. There may be a relationship, or maybe not. You might want to take a look at that if you're the photographer on one of these. Yeah, right. John Crooks, Water Sentinel, 4th place.
This is at the World War II Memorial, and for whatever reason, this particular shot, it kind of looked like a person to me. So that's what struck me about it.
Okay, nice. Okay, 3rd place, Tim Houston, Carved by the Sea.
Just a long exposure. This is the Irish coast, the sea arch on the Irish coast.
Okay, next is 2nd place, John Crooks, I Think It's Letting Up.
This is inside the African American Museum in the basement. They have a fountain there, so it just took a kind of a longer exposure through the fountain.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and our 1st place winner tonight is Colin McNaught with Pacific Froth.
Hey.
Behind you.
Oh, thanks. It was taken, we were very high up on a cliff overlooking the Oregon coast, and there were actually birds and animals playing there. I don't know whether there's one in the picture or not, but I just thought there's a lot of action there, and I thought it was a nice spot.
Very good. Okay, interesting. So now on to the unlimited Mono, we have 25 images. That'll be a first through fourth and 3 honorables. So that'll be it. We'll be looking for 7 images.
I think I bumped this a little bit. so
Now
I
we
just
need some pictures. So
Make sure. it wasn't-
could that be them?
Okay.
Thank you.
Electronically get it straight.
Do you need some water or anything?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. First image, icicle creatures meet. Surfer and the surf. Old Faithful. Surface tension. Hidden in the ripples. Ice melting to water. Show blown, snow blown, so blown. Frozen. Okay, creative water drop photography. Frosted veins. Paradise dimensions. Nature's mirror. Exhaust pipe icicles. Raindrops on glass tabletop. Okay, mercurial. In the lead. Still water. Sandstone Falls. Great waterfalls. Slip and slide. Liquid detonation. Bison in mist. Kerplop. Water erupting. Reflections of a fall day. What's that? Icicle creatures. Oops, I'm not reading the title. Sorry.
Okay. This is a really interesting creative treatment of the icicles where they're mirrored and stitched together, creating something completely new. I like the creativity of it. I've done some, similar things, patterning, abstract photos to kind of make something new, and I like the effect of it. The contrast looks really nice. It's just a really strong sort of graphic, and I think, for me, it works more as an abstract or a pattern than something that's really kind of more about water, about the theme tonight. But it is really cool. But I'll say it's out. One of the amazing things about water as a theme is just so many forms and so many moods and ways that it can be treated, and this is just so crisp that it's almost like pointillist. It's just those dots of the water are a really interesting effect. Like the figure of the surfers almost obscured in some ways. And you almost can't even see a surfboard. There's just like a little hint of a line down there. And in that way, like this is so much about the water. It's really pretty cool. And I can tell, you're kind of shooting against the light maybe. There's, some really strong highlights there. But I think in this case, they work because it seems like a deliberate effect against the dark of the surfer. So I like this. I like that form and the way that it's outlined with the water. So I'll say that's in. Such a classic place, and having those steam eruptions go off is always, it's such a dramatic moment, and I think you've captured that drama really well here. It's very strong processing to my eye. I see a lot of contrast there, which, the dark tones are very dark, and some of the highlights are really white, pretty blown out. And I think that kind of takes away from the image for me. I would also I see a couple of spots on the left-hand side in the sky where I think there might have been dust spots in the sensor. In digital pictures, I spend a lot of time taking those out in Lightroom, so I know how insidious they are. But I would just, try to catch those before you print. So it's a really cool scene, but I think I would just kind of watch your processing, watch those details a little bit, and you'll have an even more successful picture. So I'll say that's out. And wow, I wouldn't have even known this was water. It's so super abstract, and it's fascinating in that way. But it's so abstract that if I hadn't known what I was looking at tonight in the context of this theme, I would be a little confused. It's so graphic. It's really cool, really strong and graphic. The contrast is great. The composition is really cool. But to me, this reads a little bit more like a contender in an abstraction competition than in water. So I would submit it for that. So I'll say this one's out. Yeah, I almost did not see. I don't know if it's a seal or a sea lion. There's a critter in that water there, and I think the title hinted to the fact that it's almost hidden in it. The processing is really interesting. There's a lot of texture in here. It almost has a look of like an etching or just so many little lines in there. It's very detailed, and I think that's really cool. I wish maybe that the critter it was a little bit more distinct from the water, but it is a really neat effect. I think maybe if it were in the composition, it's swimming from left to right, and I think maybe if there were more space in front of it. Usually when a figure is moving through a scene, it's effective to have space in front of it, so you move so you feel like the animal or the person is moving into the space and into the photograph and not out of it. So I think that composition could have been improved a little bit with a little bit more space in front of him instead of behind him. But it's a really cool effect, so I can appreciate the creativity of this a lot. But I'll say that's out. Another dramatic moment, a glacier calving, I would assume. And it looks like the light might have been challenging. It looks like it might have been, like bright sun. It just seems like there's, a lot of lightness on sort of the top part of the ice. Might have been, kind of challenging to capture, a lot of tones in it because of that. I'm wondering if maybe this was zoomed in very far, or there's a little bit of softness in the image that's taking me out of the moment a little bit. Because it's you've captured the moment well, but I think there's just a little bit more sharpness, a little more definition there would have helped it even more to be more dramatic. So I'll say that's out too. Sorry. I really enjoy the graphic nature of this. Your contrast is great. The tones are really nice. I like the composition with, sort of the little hills of snow in the foreground. It breaks up that pattern. Patterns are always pleasing, but it's really great when you've got a pattern that's interrupted with something. And that foreground helps to do that. And also that one little clump of snow that's kind of sticking through the fence is another little punctuation mark that helps to pull your eye in. So I like this very much. I'll say that's in. This is really cool. The sharpness is great. The contrast. I love the form in the ice. Not only that big leaf, that dominant shape, but also underneath it is almost this little, pointed piece of ice, almost like a little bird beak or something that is like a little extra something, a little extra punctuation. And I really appreciate that in this image. It sort of takes it another level. I think you could maybe crop just a little bit off of the left-hand side of the photo just to kind of, it's a little bit out of balance. But otherwise, I think this is really beautiful. And that's in. This is so surreal, really well captured. I know that these water droplet photographs are really challenging to get something that's compelling and fun. And this one's really very fun. I think, that it's like some sort of alien. And then you've got that little, sphere on top of it too. And again, another one I know it's water, and I would have known it was water even if you hadn't told me, or at least some sort of liquid, but it has, sort of this illusion of looking like something else completely, like some sort of alien, and that's a really fun effect. And I like that it's not super contrasty. There's, you're not getting into black tones here. There's just these shades of gray and then the white. And I think for this image, it sort of adds to that feeling of surreal. So that's done really well. I'll say that's in. The sharpness and the crispness of this are so well done, and it suits the subject matter really well. The detail is great. I love the way that not only that primary leaf, but then the ones behind it, you can see those ice crystals on the other surfaces as well, but those aren't as obvious. I think, your processing here is really lovely because that one leaf really takes center stage and the others are a little bit in the background, and that it's very effective. Yeah, really beautifully done. And photographs like this are, they can be so challenging because, it can just be visual chaos. Like there's all these bubbles and they're really cool. But I think with this one, I was noticing, when we went through quickly the first time, there's a little bit of structure here to kind of hold the chaos together. I think your composition here works. The fact that they're the bubbles that are breaking the frame, and they kind of frame the ones in the center that are the whole bubbles. The dark and light areas all they kind of make it pull together. For a chaotic composition, it's hard to do sometimes. I think you could maybe vignette the around the edges a little bit, just to draw the attention towards the center a little bit more. I would keep it subtle. I wouldn't make it obvious, but that might help even more to bring out that quality that I was talking about. But I think this is really cool. That's in. Yeah, water as a mirror. It works so well for that, and I can see where you're going here, and I like that you're seeing that that water as a mirror and those reflections. The bridge itself is a little distracting at the top of the frame because it is very bright. I think the highlights are kind of blown out. That's taking me out of the effect a little bit. And there's a lot of foreground as well that's not really adding a lot to the image. I think you could probably crop, some of the top and some of the bottom. But, it's also that reflection is broken up by, something that's on the surface of the water. And that does kind of get in the way a little bit of the effect that I think you're going for here. So, I would just try to pay attention to the framing and making sure that everything that's in that image is working for the effect that you're going for. Because I think there's some extra stuff in here that's kind of taking me out of the area that I think you really wanted to focus on. But your contrast is good, and other than that top part, and the sharpness is nice. So keep looking at the framing of your scenes. This one's out. Oh, the ice. Really cool. That form is really interesting. Almost looks like a little cave on the right. Yeah, I think your sharpness and the contrast are all really nice. I think it's interesting the way that there's, that sort of cave-like form on the right, and then those two icicles on the left. It provides sort of a balance. I think you could go ahead and darken the background even more, just to, really emphasize the forms themselves. I see, what's probably, I don't know whether it's ground or something in the background at the bottom of the image, just to really emphasize the graphic nature of it. But I think it's interesting, and I like the creativity of it. So I'll say that's in. More really cool seeing. This is just, really textured and graphic. And I realize this is probably a small area, maybe with a macro lens. it looks metallic, which is a really interesting effect. And I like that one form that's, throughout the frame with all those little supporting little pieces. It almost looks like Mercury. Really very cool. Again, the scale is a little mysterious. There's definitely abstraction. I think this is another really strong contender for an abstract competition. So just keep that in mind. Really interesting. Well, that's in. I like this a lot. Another, abstract photograph, but it's clear to me that this is water because I've photographed these kind of reflections in water so much. The lines are very crisp and detailed, which is really nice. Like they're little small forms within this. They're like, I could pick out half a dozen different smaller compositions within this photograph that would still be interesting just by themselves. And I think that's a really cool thing when I'm looking at a photograph, when, it pulls me in more and more. And in particular, there's one that's like kind of in the middle, off to the left side. There's like it almost looks like a beak, of a bird or, penguin or something over there. That's a neat form. I like this. It's a creative approach, and I really appreciate it. So that's in. Is this the right way around? Okay. Yes. Okay. Is it upside? Okay. Okay. Because I see a number in it.
Okay, it's upside down.
Was it labeled upside down?
It was labeled upside down. It's upside down.
Okay.
It's labeled upside down.
Okay. It makes more sense now. Okay. I was like, this is a swimming pool, but something. And then I saw the 5 in there. There's a number. Okay. Yes. Context helps. Another really like the splash is just such a big part of the impact of this photo. This is really interesting framing because we've got sort of these pennants up above and the top of the frame. You can see that it's the edge of a swimming pool. Of course, the lane markers, and then you've got, a swimmer, but you can't see the swimmer. The water is, so active. You don't really see the swimmer. You can't tell, there's something dark there, but you can't tell where they are, where their, head is or anything like that, which is, there are interesting choices made here. I can see like people's feet on the pool deck back there, it is distracting me a little bit. I kind of wish that you, and it probably wouldn't have been possible. It all depends on how high or low you can get on the side of a pool. If those banners had been, the background for the banners had been the pool water itself and not where you can see people standing and chair legs and things like that, because then they would have been like another graphic element with just the water behind them. And I think that would have been a really cool effect. As it is, all the sort of cluttery stuff in the top of the frame is kind of taking me out of the image. And that's a shame because there's something really creative here. So I would just, try that with a different kind of framing, and I think you'd have something really cool on your hands. So I'll say that's out. This is really interesting to me. I love that the glass and the ice is, there are all these highlights and bright tones in it, and then the bottle is secondary. It clearly has water in it too, but it's almost like components from 2 different photographs. And it is sort of mysterious, and I like that effect a lot. It's a very different kind of photo, and I am really appreciating the detail in it and the unusual effect. I think you could maybe, and I know I say this a lot, I think you could crop maybe a little bit off of the left-hand side of the image. There's just a little, seems like a little much room over there, but that's, maybe a little off the top. But that's, again, little details. I think this is really cool. That's in. Nice waterfall treatment. The texture in that falling water is really nice. Very, very crisp. Very, there's a lot of texture in the rock too. Really strong contrast in this, which is, I think it works for this particular image. It just seems like it suits the subject matter well. It's nice and crisp and sharp. I'll say that's in. A very different waterfall treatment. And I like this as well. This is more classic. This feels like a photograph, again, that could have been taken many, many years ago or yesterday. And that's, that's a nice, there's something sort of, familiar and nostalgic about this treatment, which I can really appreciate. There is some, in the lower right-hand corner, it looks like there's some vegetation that might be like in the foreground that's, a little distracting to me. I think, you could either Photoshop that out or do something to de-emphasize it. I can't help but think too that maybe, a vertical orientation might have suited this well. I like the stripes and the rock, and I like the waterfall, but the movement of all these things and the trees, they're very vertical. And then it's a horizontal composition, which kind of cuts off some of that vertical feel. So I really would have liked to have seen this in a vertical format. So I'll say that's out. It's another beautiful waterfall, all these different treatments. I like the softness of the water in this one, that the rock is so detailed, but the water has that really beautiful softness from a long exposure. It moves through the frame really nicely. I can see the line of where the water flows through the image. It kind of, sort of this down, back and forth thing, which is, it's nice. And that's not always easy to capture in a scene. So that's handled really well. Yeah, that's... Frozen in motion. Yeah, this is really cool too. Just, just the splash, pure splash on a black background, which is, I think that's, haven't really seen a lot of that. And I'm kind of curious, how you did it. It's very cool. It sort of makes, the shape is almost like a heart or something, which is kind of cool. I love what's happening in the upper right part of the shape too. There's like a little, just kind of the way it's reaching. So I think this is really done well. The contrast and the sharpness are really beautiful. It sort of almost has a quality like outer space or something too, which is an interesting effect. So that's in. It's a beautiful scene. Oh, I'm sorry. I nudged the camera. Yeah, nice use of a leading line of that, kind of snakes through the landscape up to where the bison are standing, which is really strong composition. That you follow that line with your eye up, and there's actually something there. Those bison are a nice reward for your eye as it travels up and through the image. and the trees that are obscured partially by the mist. Yeah, really beautifully done. That's in. Another swimming pool splash. Yeah, this is interesting again. I like the creativity that you're seeing something and photographing something that not everybody else is photographing, because here it feels like, you know, there's no swimmer apparent. It's just the splash, which is an interesting treatment, and it does make, I think, the viewer ask questions, and there's a little mystery there. So I think that's pretty cool. I feel like, you know, maybe again that the very top part of the image takes me out of it a little bit. There's a little bit of distracting stuff up at the very top of the frame. I kind of enjoy the mystery of the rest of it. But it does make me think. It makes me wonder what was going on here. So I'll say that's in. Another mysterious photo, and there's a lot of texture in this one, but there's also like, it looks like waves and a splash, maybe rock. It's really, I'm not exactly sure what all is going on there. It is pretty, again, another abstract image. It is interesting. I'm seeing water in it, but I can't quite tell like what the source of it is, or, you know, where that splash is coming from, what the other surfaces are. And I do like the mystery of it. I'm just a little bit confused. And a little confusion might not be a bad thing. I'll say that's in. This is such a beautiful scene. The sharpness, the texture are really nice. It's very fine. There's a lot of contrast up in the sky. I think the clouds might be a little too contrasty for my personal taste, because I feel like we're not seeing that same level of contrast in the reflection of them. So it is taking me out of the reality of the scene a little bit. But it's really pretty. It's a pretty scene, and I think, you know, maybe just a lighter touch on some of the processing and the sky would really sort of bring it back to where I feel like it's a little bit more realistic. But it is very striking. I'll say that's out.
Okay, you want to try the table thing this
Sure.
time? Okay.
I got quite a few. You want to go through real quick?
Yep.
Like this? I don't think it's applicable.
Do you want to lay them all out, or do you want to just go through the
We'll
ones?
do a little quick, yeah. And how many are we going down to?
Going 7, right?
Here you go.
Okay.
Okay. Out. Out. In. 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 Out. In. In. In.
Ouch. In. Ouch. In. In. Ouch. In. Okay, what are we down to now?
I'll let you do it, okay?
Sure.
When was it?
April 11th. Check the website. To the 18th.
Okay.
My brother
And yep. 3, right. Okay. All right, that was fun. Okay, and we do have winners. And Bob, you want to grab this? I want to push these through. You want to grab that? Oh, he's coming up. That's all right. Okay, honorable mention for Mike Thomas's Still Water.
Sorry, thank you.
All the lights coming from behind, and I've got a flash directly behind the glass. And then I had to clone out some highlights on the bottle.
Okay, honorable mention for creative water drop photography, J.C. Williams. Right, J.C.'s not here, right? Okay. Honorable mention for Paradise Dimensions, that's Ron Pfeiffer.
A little bit slow.
Pardon me?
A little bit slow.
Paradise Dimensions.
When you do it the first time.
Okay, gotcha. This is, it's got a piece of geode behind it for some background. Water coming out the spigot because the spigot in the kitchen sink has bubbles in it, so that's where the source of the bubbles was. Macro lens. Okay. Slip and slide, Clarence Carvel. 4th place.
Great Smoky Mountains. The nice thing about being down there is you got your choice of about 200 waterfalls. You get more tired of photographing the waterfalls than you do anything else. But it's pretty nice, very enjoyable.
Okay. And 3rd place, Mike Thomas, Frozen.
So that's my truck bed, which has a cover on it and was covered in snow. And then I went and picked up a leaf that had the ice on it, and I put that, stuck that on the back of the truck and peeled the leaf off, just leaving the ice.
This snow came at the right time for this theme.
Oh, this was one of the previous snows.
Okay, raindrops on glass tabletop, Clarence Carvel, 2nd place.
It was raining when I went in. It cleared up quite nice. It was at a golf course over on the eastern coast of New Zealand. We went to bed and decided the next day was going to be a waste, and got up, and all these tabletops had these beautiful patterns. So I wound up photographing about 2 hours there.
Great. All right, our 1st place winner tonight, Catherine Rush, Mercurial.
It was taken in the Locks, which is Seattle, and I don't know, I was just getting really close, and then I saw all those very Northwest Indian images in those reflections and all, and I just couldn't. I was also trying to pick out 1 or 2, but then I just left it.
Okay, and monochrome is done, and we're on to color. And so we're going to be looking at novice color, there'll be 11 images, and we'll just be looking for 1 through 4. So we're just one less, but no honorable mention. And okay, that must be this. Okay, first pass through, John. No, excuse me. Fountain Pilgrimage. Lake Mead sunset, 5,000 feet. Sunset on the river. Lake Mead from on high. Ducks through droplets. Not the Chesapeake. Harbor reflections. Forest droplets. Mountain stream. Jackson Lake ripples. Icy pine. Yeah.
Okay. Nice to see color again. I've been looking at black and white in my own work so much that, and then the black and white here, although it was great to see all those black and white prints. But these are very lovely too. I'm enjoying the variety of imagery so much. I love the way that you have used the water to frame the person in this image. I think you really almost could crop a lot of the left-hand side of the photograph out, and it would be even more effective to me, because I feel like that one large sort of out of focus, arc of water on the left side is sort of pulling me out of the image a bit. Because the use of the water is so clever as a framing device. I really want the emphasis to be on that. So I feel like you could have done just, this part in here, really focusing on that form with the person in there. And that yellow tree back there is a nice sort of counterpoint to the blue water. And it would be even stronger, I believe. But I think you're seeing really well here. Just I would maybe tighten up the composition. So I'll say that's out. Yeah, I love a good, view from above, and having just been out in the desert, I can really appreciate, these aerial views of the desert, and water in the desert is so compelling too. The color here is so strong that, again, for my personal preference, it takes me out of it a little bit, just because the color is really saturated, and I feel like I don't see it that saturated in real life. So I would just, personal preference. Everybody has their own style, but I would prefer it a little bit toned down from that because it is a beautiful scene. I think it could possibly be a little bit sharper as well. But it's a beautiful place, and I like that you're capturing it. That's out. The water in this is really beautiful. Yeah, I'll say again, I feel like maybe the saturation is dialed up a little bit on this beyond what reality would show. The sky looks just a little touch too far for my personal preference. But those forms in the water are beautiful, and I can see why you captured this. I would even, crop out some portion of the sky, or maybe even crop just in on the water. Really, when your focus is on those forms in the water, those that wave form and the reflection in it, I think that's beautiful on its own. And you might not need even the shore behind it in the composition, because there's something really compelling there in the form of the water. But I think that, the saturation is a little strong for me too. So, I would just say, it might just be the style you're cultivating, but for me, it's a little bit distracting. So I'll say that's out. The forms of water with the rock and the desert are always so. I love the way that the color. I think you've captured the color really well in this. That sort of orange and blue, that cool and warm colors contrast so nicely, and that's really conveyed well in this picture. There's a lot of sky there that I feel like. I almost don't want to see the sky at all. I really like the play of the land against the water. And to me, the photograph would feel more like it was about water in that case. Right now, the sky was really sort of incidental to my eye. But it looks nice and sharp, and the color is very crisp, which is really pleasing. So I'll say that's out. This is really neat. It's very interesting, and I know there were other compositions tonight here where I've said that they're a little chaotic. There's a lot happening in the composition, and that's very challenging. A lot of times, it can just be your eye doesn't know where to rest. But some of these ducks have these red eyes, and my eye kind of travels from one red eye to the other, and they're in focus enough that they're a really great sort of point of entry for your eye to travel around the photograph. And the water droplets are such a component of it too, that normally I'd be like, no, this is a picture about ducks, but the water is a really important part of it. It's just the splashes there, and there are some that are in focus and out of focus, and it's really chaotic, but it holds together because the forms are there, and there's a color story. There's a contrast of the brown and the white and the different colors of the ducks' heads. It's really compelling. I'm kind of impressed that it holds together as well as it does. Little suggestion, again, I think it would help a chaotic composition, pull together. I know I suggested this earlier tonight too. Just a little bit of a vignette around the edge of the frame, just to ever so slightly darken some of those lighter tones around the corners and the edges, would just help to draw your attention even more to the really interesting part of the image, which is all in the center. But it's really beautiful. Well done. That's in. More desert water. I do love it. And again, I'll say I think this would I think this would work maybe just as well without a lot of the sky in this image. I think there's some really great forms in the land against the water. I think the real story in this photograph are, these forms down here. The way the water outlines them, like the action of the water in this photo is outlining the land. And it does it really beautifully. And I think you've captured some of those really well. And then, in the background of the image, it's sort of supporting. But I feel like, there's even just concentrating on that one area in that corner of the photo would really be an interesting story too. So, maybe a tighter composition here would be even better, because I think technically it's really nice. Just to, have a little bit stronger compositional story. So I'll say that's out. I like this a lot. There's a really nice almost symmetry in this. You've got the yellow on the left and the right. The forms are chaotic, but they also, they make sense. You know what the subject is. You got a little bit of the boat in there, just enough. And the color palette's really pleasing. It's very sharp. This is really beautiful. I love the symmetry. Well done. That's in. I think this is handled really nicely. Water drops are always a little bit harder than I think they're going to be. they're so small, and I think you've done a really nice job of this. I would maybe crop a little bit off the left side. I don't know what's going on with me tonight, where everything has a little bit of space on the left. It would put those drops a little bit off center, maybe, looking at a grid of thirds as a little bit of a guide for placement there. Right now they're kind of centered, and there's sort of that empty, indistinct space on the left. I really like the background, that it is nice and indistinct, but I think maybe a little bit less of that would be effective too. But this is really beautiful. That's in. It's a really pretty waterfall. I love the form. I like the way you've captured the form and the movement of the water, the way it's frozen. Your shutter speed, I think, was nice. I think maybe your processing, it's a little saturated for me. That yellow bright part in the upper right hand corner is a little bit hot to my eye. The highlights in the water are maybe a little bit overexposed too. So I would dial down the saturation a little bit, because otherwise it's really pretty. So I'll say that's out. I like that you're seeing those shapes, that waveform in the water created by the boat. That you just let the top of the composition just be that stripy effect. That is really cool. Yeah, it's really nice that there are nothing else in that water that interrupts those patterns except for the boat itself. It just makes it really clear what it is. I think you could even, if you really want to emphasize that even more, I think you could crop a little bit off the bottom and, have it be an even more extreme sort of composition. But I think this works nicely. It's, it really conveys, sort of the habits of water when something like a boat passes through them. So I'll say that's in. I love, things that are coated in ice. I say that having escaped the ice for a week, but it is really pretty. It's a beautiful thing to photograph. And I think this is a nice ice form. There's a lot of, it's kind of a mass, and I'm looking at, individual, these sort of individual little icicles, the individual forms. I think those are a little bit more effective, the pieces where you see those little fingers of ice rather than like a whole big clump. And I realize that probably takes, a macro lens to capture, to really do them justice, because there are some in here that I think are just really pretty, and I kind of wish we were closer to those. And then down here, that one's out of focus, which, unfortunately, that one kind of distracts me a little bit, because there's some really good detail in here, but I feel like I have to work and look closer to get to it. Yeah, I can see where you're going with it, and I think you just need to keep getting closer, because it's very pretty and very compelling. But I'll say that's out.
Okay. Fred, how many do we have remaining?
Enough to put out.
Okay. Perfect.
We're done, or we got more, right? Okay. One.
Okay.
Two. Three.
Jackson Lake Ripples.
So that's the lake in front of the Grand Tetons, and I was taking a hike up the trail. I didn't get all the way to the top, surprisingly, and I looked down and saw that, and I thought it was a nice pattern. So,
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Third place is Dinah Leniken, Forest Droplets.
This isn't the kind of picture I normally take, but because of the themes with the group and the stuff I've been watching other people submit, I was just walking down the driveway and I saw these droplets, and I went in and got my camera and came out, and
Cool.
I was happy
That's
with
the
it.
way it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Diana, hang on to the microphone, because you have the second place winner, Ducks Through Droplets.
So this was taken at the infamous Wall of Shame in Cambridge on Oakley Street. And usually I go more for the ducks and less for the splash, but this showed up, and with their eyes and the red heads and the splashing and the chaos, it kind of appealed to me. So thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, and our first place winner, John Crooks, Harbor Reflections.
Yeah, this was at the boat show, sailboat show in Annapolis. So just like the color palette and kind of the symmetry of it.
Okay. Pardon me? Okay, all done? All right.
Okay, thanks.
And this is unlimited color. There are 32 entries. That's more than we had in the monos. And so I think it's going to be a little while to go through this. And with 32 entries, then looks like we have 1 through 4 and 3 honorables. Okay. Watercolor. The locks. Urban steam. Leaf on spillway.
There's something stuck in the side.
Pretend you didn't see that.
Okay.
Okay, and oil and water don't mix. Water becomes light. Puffin. Peaceful water scene. Oil and water. Carved by nature. Okay, and first place goes to, that's a title, not. Okay, before the crash. Glass water dive. Guard dog. Secret beach. Icy falls. Anticipation. Beach water scene. Firefall at Horsetail Falls. Okay. Collisions. Liquid symmetry. Bird's eye water view. Hot geyser overflow. Ocean textures. Splash pad. water leak, water dancing, suspended zest, trout, wall of water, apocalypse seahorses, and rugged coastal view.
Okay.
Don't trip over that
Got
water.
to flip them up. Okay. And make this work.
Okay, I like the creativity, just the swirl and the movement, and this is really beautiful. The colors are beautiful. It's not obviously water, but I get the effect. You know, like if I didn't know I was looking at a water photograph. Yeah, it's really beautiful. It almost seems more like, you know, watercolor or something. You know, it's very abstract, but there's a nice movement in it that does hold together. The forms in it are really pretty. I'll say that's in. And another, you know, there's a lot of abstraction to this. I can tell what it is because I'm familiar, you know, with the kind of structure. I think the composition is just so clean and smart. I like the way that you've included, you know, some of the structure at the top, and then the way that the water just acts as like, it just creates this really beautiful soft gradient of those colors is really nice. This is handled very well. It's beautiful. That's in. I know that building. My studio is in the Broma-Seltzer Tower. Yeah, I like the scene. All the steam is really, it's very atmospheric. I like the way that you've captured that. It's, you know, it feels like maybe there's a, you know, a little bit, it might be because it's a nighttime shot, like there's a filter or something on the photo, but, you know, it's cool. It's got a mood to it. You know, maybe a little bit of a lack of sharpness in it, but you know, it being a nighttime shot, I can kind of understand why. There's a lot of street in the foreground. I kind of feel like I would like to see the focus a little bit more up on all of it, you know, kind of cutting off the buildings at the top, but then there's a lot of the road. I think we still have plenty of the effect of steam with some of that road on the bottom eliminated from the composition. So that one's out. I really like the movement of the water in this and the way that the leaves are resting in it. And it kind of shows, you know, the effect of water on the leaves, you know, where some of them are just, you know, really plastered to the rock. And then the one is sticking up. That's a really nicely seen detail. Yeah, I think that, the brightness of the water in on the bottom part of the frame is it's a little bit bright. I think I might have talked before about how, the brightest part of an image is where your eye goes first, the lightest, brightest part. And right now it's down at the bottom of the frame, and it kind of takes me away from, I feel like the movement of the water at the top and the leaves are sort of the main point of focus. And maybe just a little processing would kind of tone down some of those very bright highlights on the bottom and make it feel a little bit more balanced to me. So I would think about maybe that. So I'll say that one's out. This is really interesting. The forms are just crazy, very surreal. And I think because I think the title had that it was oil and water, and it's like there's this sort of, it's chaotic, but it's almost like some sort of crazy organism too. It's really neat, really sharp. I think it's rendered very well. For as much movement as I know it took to do this. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I'll say that's in. Very creative. This is a really beautiful classic shot. The rainbow that's caught in that water is just beautiful. The colors are vibrant, but they don't look overexposed because the green in the trees looks, like it should. It doesn't look too saturated. I would maybe crop a little bit off of the left side of the image. There's just sort of, just to keep the focus on, the trees and the rainbow created by the waterfall. But it's really beautiful. That's in. The puffin. I love the sense of movement in this. They're fascinating birds. I'm not sure for this particular theme if this is, for what I would include. I know there's water in the background of it, but to me, this is more of a wildlife photograph. I would maybe submit it for a different kind of competition, but it's very painterly and it's a cool image. But that one's out. I like the composition too. I like that you've just got this, nice open space for him to be flying into. But I would save it for another competition. So that's out. Beautiful scene. Your colors are really nice. They're vibrant without being oversaturated. Yeah, it's lovely. It's a little bit in the realm of like a postcard photograph. Like it's really beautiful, but it's not surprising to me. There's not like a really singular point of interest in it. It's just sort of the general beauty shot, which is perfectly great. I would love to see, an even more interesting composition to be even a little bit more innovative. But it's beautiful. It's beautifully, technically done really well. I'll say that's out. Really fun image. The color palette is really cool. I think I said from another, similar type of image that I wouldn't necessarily get water from this, even though I know, they're droplets. And I think this would be a really strong contender for an abstract competition. I think the composition's really very solid. It's really nice, very pleasing. But I would save it for abstract rather than water for me. So I'll say that one's out. I'm always fascinated with these kind of formations in the rock where the water has just carved out these pools. And this is a really beautiful one. You can see the movement of the water, the green around it, the texture of the rock are all really, nice and sharp. They're really well done, well conveyed. Yeah, the colors are nice. I feel like maybe there's a little bit more on the top of the composition than I feel like maybe you could, crop it a little bit just to put a little more emphasis on that pool itself. And I think we would still see some of the ferns and the greenery. It would just make it a little stronger. But it's really nice. That's in. More swimming pool. Another great, really, the splash is just really cool. And I like this in color because I feel like the colors hold together really nicely. There's that, blue and turquoise palette. I'm kind of wondering if this is upside down.
It is.
Okay.
You're consistent. You had it right.
Yeah. Okay. I get it more now. Yeah. The splash is really, it makes it into something else. You don't see the swimmers so much, but the splash is really an interesting effect. I would probably leave out the top of the image with the red bit because I like the color scheme otherwise. And the red sort of, distracts a little bit. I think you could crop in on this and it would be even more compelling. I'm just really concentrating on the pattern of the blues and the splash formations. So I'll say that's out, but I like what's going on there with some cropping. That's a beautiful wave. I like the sharpness. I like the clarity. The contrast is nice. The colors seem very faithful to reality. I feel like a broken record tonight, but I feel like this could also be cropped a little bit at the top. To really bring the attention to that inside of the wave, which is the really compelling part. But it's beautiful. That's in. I like the creativity here, the colors, and just that you're trying something very different. It's very abstract. And again, it's not obviously water, but you can kind of tell it's some sort of glass and liquid composition. The top is a little distracting. It looks like there's a metal rim or something there that's kind of detracting from the pattern. I feel like what you're really going for here is the pattern of the color and the form. So I think, cropping in on that would help convey that idea a little bit better because I think your sharpness is good and you're seeing things different. You're doing something creative and I do appreciate that. But that one's out. Yeah, I like that. You're approaching the reflective property of water with a completely different subject matter from what most people are doing. And I can get into the creativity of this too, the seeing. And I like the reflection. You could maybe bring out a little bit more detail in the reflection of the dogs, so you can kind of see the features in his face a little bit more. Right now, they're a little dark, a little muted. I would maybe even crop again. I would crop some from the top. We see the full figure of the person holding the leash as a reflection. I think that you could crop down below the hands in the top part of the image. And it also eliminates a lot of that street, which is not the really compelling part of the image. And I think it would be even stronger because there's something really cool going on here. So I'll say that's out, but I like, with some work there, I think this would be really very cool. I would kind of like to see that in black and white too, just as a little note. I think that could be very cool. It's a beautiful scene. I love nighttime shots, and I never do them myself. The color is beautiful. I kind of feel like this feels to me more like it's celebrating the nighttime photography aspect. It's not quite as much about the water itself to me. There's the sky in the photograph is even more prevalent than the water is. So I feel like maybe this would, be a contender for a different competition. So I'll say that's out. Beautifully framed waterfall. Nature sometimes just gives you the frame right there, and you've just taken advantage of it here, and that's just a really striking scene. I like the way you've handled the water, that long exposure. The ice looks nice and sharp and crisp. Your tones are really nice. I think that could work in black and white too, but I like the color. That soft green at the bottom there's a nice mood to that. So it's really beautiful. That's in. Talk about a decisive moment. I think that was just really timely, the way you got that with the splash. Curious to know whether they actually got wet. But it's a great moment. It looks like maybe I don't know whether the processing is a little bit strong, or I'm not sure. I see some kind of the skin looks maybe overly smooth. There's just some strange kind of color and texture thing going on in part of the image that looks like maybe just a little, the sharpening might have been a little bit intense, but the moment is really, really great, and I like the composition too. I'll say that's out. Beautiful scene. I like, the water really is just, a main component of this image. And, it's postcardy, but it really is about, the water and what it has done to this landscape, the rock and everything. It's really beautifully, technically it's beautifully sharp and crisp, and the exposure is just dead on, really beautiful. I'll say that's in. I know that right now, Yosemite, that you can see the light on Horsetail Falls, and a friend of mine's been sending pictures from there. Not that he took, but the other people took, and saying, I need to be there. And I haven't been there yet. So bravo that you got this, because I know this is a rare thing to catch, and that is a special, special moment, and it's beautifully done. Yeah, and I think that's a challenging exposure too, I think, because the light is not super easy to work with. But I can't imagine how that would be any better. It's very classic. A lot of people have photographed it, but you've done it really nicely. So that's in. Okay, this is really unique and very cool. That form, frozen in the water by, just a fast shutter speed is really cool. And I'm not sure how that was like where all the colors are from, but the color palette is really beautiful. I think maybe that in that lower right-hand corner, there's some bright highlights in that blue that are a little distracting. I would tone those down. But the rest of it is, really super crisp and really interesting. And I like all that, the patterns in the water. So that's cool. That's in. Very creative. Very watercolory, but also like the mirroring to create this sort of, that symmetrical effect, making a pattern out of it. It's very attractive. It almost glows. It's like, this could be a glass piece or something. I could see this like backlit, making a little window or something. It doesn't necessarily, to me, I think this is another strong contender for an abstract competition, because it doesn't scream water to me, but it's really cool and I like the creativity. But I'll say that one's out. Okay, this one took me half a second to like see what was going on there. And I really like it. That bird on that line, bisecting the images, really, that's a really cool effect. I would crop out a bit of the bottom, because I feel like maybe it's rare, I would say put something dead center, but I think having that line with the bird in the center of the composition could actually work really well, because it would eliminate some of that reflected sky, and really, I think it would maybe enhance that sort of illusion of the reflection with the bird in front of it. It's well seen, and I really appreciate it. I'll say that's in. Yellowstone, getting to see lots of Yellowstone tonight, which is great. It's a beautiful scene. Those geothermal features are so colorful and compelling, and I like that it's vibrant. The sky might be a little oversaturated. I see some streaks in it that look like some like a filter or processing or something, which is not necessarily to my taste, because I feel like it competes with the geothermal pools, which are really the main focus here. And again, this is a very sort of straightforward scenic shot, which I really appreciate. But I'd kind of like to see, push a little bit further into maybe a composition that's a little bit more challenging, that kind of celebrates an aspect of the water even a little bit more. And I'd be curious to see what you do with that, because otherwise I think it's really beautiful. I'll say that's out. So this is all about the texture and the color and the movement, and I really like that. It's, a little bit of controlled chaos, which apparently I really do have an affinity for. The color palette is really beautiful. Just these shades of blue, really nice variations. I like that there's that form across the top. That's like the crest of a wave almost, and then in the bottom is a secondary form, that white pattern. It's very beautiful. It sort of draws you in the more you look at it, and I can really appreciate that aspect of it. Really well done. That's in. This is neat. So sort of great little, street scene. The boy in the middle is really, really, really defines the picture for me. I'd like that, you see the other kids too, but I would maybe, process this so that maybe toning down a little bit the other people, the other kids in the frame so that he stands out even more. You see his face, the other faces are kind of obscured, and I think you've handled that really well. It's a great scene. It's very, the water is, a really integral part of it. I like that a lot. That's in. Another really good treatment of, a person, interacting with the water. Obviously this is more, of a staged situation, but really very nicely handled. And I think this is very challenging to do. The pose, the light, the movement of the water, I think are all really nice and handled very well, and also handled in a way that, it's refined, it's that could go bad in a lot of ways, but I think, it's done really well. Quite nicely framed and nicely captured. So that's in. I really like the color in this, the warm light, and then the blue of the sky. You've taken this at a really nice time of day to get that contrast. The shapes of the water are really nice. Excuse me. I like that there are people in the bottom part of the image. I kind of wish that, they were maybe a little bit more distinct. I feel like that part of the image is a little bit soft, but still, it's really well done. That's in. Another good splashy subject. I like that, again, creativity of, something interacting with the water. I think your composition's really nice here. This is a rare instance where I think you could use a little more saturation. I think that yellow and that green are begging to be a little bit more vibrant and a little bit more saturated. It just seems a little bit muted to me for what the subject is. I would try some fresh processing on that, bring out a little bit more contrast, a little bit more saturation, and I think then you'd really have, a really strong piece. So I'll say that's out. I really like this. The colors are great. You can clearly tell what the subject is, but they're distorted by the water. It's chaotic, but it holds together because you can see the movement. You can see sort of the primary. There's like the main fish, and then there are all the supporting ones. I think that controlled chaos is handled really well here. That's in. Water lends itself well to controlled chaos. And it also lends itself really well to abstracting and making something interesting, which may or may not be interesting on its own. I don't know what is behind is it water or ice in this case? But you just see these color fields that, are softened and abstracted by that layer of ice or water in front of them. And this reminds me of some work that I've seen like Jay Maisel do in New York, where he shoots through windows and stuff all the time, where he's, just taking these color fields and I think this is done so well because, you've got this sort of primary color palette that is graphic, but it holds together really well. So yeah, that's well seen. That's in. Another cool pattern that's made from mirroring an image that was already abstract to begin with, and now it's even more abstract. There are some cool little Rorschach test kind of forms in this. I'll say I think this would be a strong contender for an abstraction theme, more so than for water for my personal preference, but it's very cool and I like the creativity. But that's out. This is beautiful. I want to go there, wherever that is. This might, to me, feel a little more like landscape than, about the water itself. But I love the way that you've framed the water in those rock formations. The contrast, the sharpness, the colors are all really beautiful. There's a little piece of the rock ledge on the right up in the top corner that I think you could crop in, and kind of that one little piece over here is kind of, that feels a little bit incidental. It's like just small enough. It's not doing a whole lot there. I would somehow crop that out. I don't think it would hurt the image at all. I think that might hang together even better without it. But it really is beautiful. I'll say that's in.
Okay, so that stack is now that stack.
Yes. And
So
Here, let me go this way.
I'll make fairly short work.
do you want to pass them through one more time, or would
yeah,
you like
we'll do
that'd be the best?
Yeah. And we're going down to
Down to 4, 5, 7. 3 honorables.
Okay. Oh.
Okay.
In. Oops, other way around.
It's upside down.
Upside down again. Sorry.
Out. In. In. Out. In. In. Out. In. In. Out. Out. In. In.
I'll see if I can pull the plug out one more time. Yeah. Here's one.
Like the Arundel Camera
That's from my Zoom. You got plenty of time. Not yet.
Just want to let everyone know that we're going to move the Baltimore Zoo field trip on April 11th to April 18th. That way we have the 11th free
for the Odyssey of Light.
for the Odyssey of Light. I'm going to need it too. Sorry.
You want to make an announcement tomorrow morning at the dam, anyone wants to come with me? Meet me out there, I'll be there.
Okay.
If they're gonna be. Okay, but no big deal. I don't know if you guys are gonna be, Sandy's always there, but I go in.
I'm sure you were sure last year. As opposed to ground level. Yeah, you weren't like right down. Well, we were close, so we just.
Fred wanted to let everyone know he's going to go to Conowingo Dam tomorrow if anyone wanted to join him. He doesn't know if there'll be any eagles this time of year. There probably won't be, but he wanted to let people know he was going.
Tripods are all heavy. Just before you had to have
Okay, I think we're down to the home stretch now. Before we announce the winners of the last category, we really need to thank our judge, Janet. Thank you so much for a wonderful job tonight. This is equivalent to a marathon, I think. Yes. Close to. So, and the other thing that's interesting is we do have abstract. Did we mention that earlier coming up? I think about 3 times, so just keep that in mind. All right, our honorable mention to Catherine Rush for the locks.
All I can say is I've taken this many times. It's really hard to stop that water and without getting a blur and everything else. So thanks.
Where was it?
It's at the Ballard Locks. It separates the bay and the ocean really. And it was built in state of Washington, 18, like the early 20th century, and it still works and people use it all the time.
Okay, very cool.
The fish ladder?
Yeah, the fish ladder's on the side, yeah.
Okay, a second honorable mention for Mike Thomas before the crash.
I'm coming.
Get your steps in. I took that down at Nags Head, North Carolina last September. I was photographing the surfers, but the waves were also interesting.
Okay. And another honorable mention, splash pad, that's Ron Pfeiffer. And this was shot, there's a splash pad along the pedestrian mall in Winchester, Virginia, and happened across that this summer and lingered to take a couple of pictures. Thought it was kind of fun. Okay, 4th place, Tim Houston, Water Becomes Light.
This is Yosemite, Lower Yosemite Falls, and if you get there in the morning, the light hits the top of the falls, and as sun comes up, it moves lower and lower down the falls, and you just get these kind of pictures, these rainbows.
Quite cool. Okay, 3rd place, Trout, Ron Pfeiffer. This was at the White Sulphur Springs Trout Fish Hatchery in West Virginia, and walked around there. I never saw so many fish in my life. So it was interesting. 2nd place, Fred Venetia, Icy Falls.
That was taken right over here at the state park, Patuxent, right here at Pataska. And I just framed it that way.
Where was it? Patapsco or Patuxent?
The one right here, right in Columbia, what is it, Patasco? I did it about 4 years ago.
Route 1?
Yeah.
Patapsco.
There's a waterfalls out there.
Cascade.
Yeah. Cascade Falls. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. One of those falls. Okay, our 1st place winner tonight in Ocean Textures, Catherine Rush.
Okay, this is just taken off a cruise ship on our way to Alaska. And I was taking a lot of water because I knew it was the theme, and so I picked this one.
Okay, and that was Ocean Textures.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Do you want to mention what's next week so we have people come back?
Yes, that's what I was working on.
I thought so.
Join us next week for our program by Irene Salasla. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. What? Sausalito for her program on wildlife photography. And have a good week. Good night.
Okay. Fred, you have the...
Judge? Thank you.